We had so much fun recording this episode about the Vatican.
I don't like to admit it, but I knew virtually nothing about the Vatican except it is where the Pope lives and it's the smallest country in the world. I didn't even know if the Vatican and Vatican City were the same thing. But after our time there, boy, did I learn some stuff. And we are going to share that with you today. Firstly, we tell you the best way to see the Vatican museums in St. Peter's, and we give you a few hints on how to miss the crowds. Then we take you through the most spectacular rooms, galleries, and courtyards full of history and artwork. But it's not all painting and sculptures. Come with us as we walk through the 250-metre long tapestry room where the eyes in the tapestries follow you as you walk along. Next is the map room where there are centuries-old maps painted on the walls underneath a gold ceiling. The rotunda room has a gigantic ancient Egyptian purple marble bathtub, which is valued at 2 billion euros. If that isn't enough marble, then listen as we tell you about the marble zoo. Yeah, I said marble zoo, where the animals actually look like they have fur because of the colours inside the marble. They were beautiful. Of course, we take you inside the Sistine Chapel to hear about the famous Michelangelo paintings, plus we give you some funny stories of all of how that came to be, and you won't believe it. Then, if that isn't enough stunning artwork and history, we walk through the massive St. Peter's Square with the incredible colonnades, and then we share the opulence of inside the Basilica. So just think, domes, gold, stunning, mind-blowing, and you might get close to what it is like. Now stay listening to the end to hear about which Pope is embalmed in a glass coffin that you can actually see while in the Basilica. I know you'll want to see all the pictures that accompany this episode, so go to the podcast description on the player you're listening on now and click on the first link to episode 65. There's a lot to take in this episode, but we know you'll be blown away, so please enjoy episode 65. Oh, and by the way, if you know anyone planning a trip to Italy, then please share our Italian series with them at beachtravelwine.com/Italy. Cheers! And welcome to the Beach Travel Wine podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Leanne.
And I'm Lyle, and this is the travel podcast for beach-loving, wine-drinking couples over 50.
So if that sounds like you, grab yourself a drink, sit back, relax and listen as we go travelling the world, one wine at a time.
Cheers.
Ciao, baby. Beat ya.
Buongiorno, Leonita.
How you doing today, Lyle?
Spectacularly,
Nice.
thank you.
I'm good. Nice to be back in there. You're looking spectacularly good too, I have to say.
Compliments will get you everywhere.
We actually said before, thank goodness we're not doing video podcasts.
Sure, that's true. Yeah, I'm in tracksuit pants, slippers.
And my leopard print glasses.
Fair enough, keep going.
Yeah, although I'm looking pretty spectacular in my coral shirt.
Yeah, coral goes with your eyes.
Yes. Anyway, it's lovely to be back in the podcast studio with you. It's one of my favourite things to do.
Yes.
And today we have moved on from Firenze and we are moving to Roma briefly. And today's episode, though, is all about the Vatican, Vatican City, the smallest country in the world, etc., etc. But first, let's just quickly talk about arriving to Rome. Because you either come into the airport or, as most people do, into the train station. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And what's that? Roma Termini.
Yeah, Roma Termini.
Mm-hmm.
It's located very close to the city. It's only about 1.8k or 20 minutes from the Colosseum, and only about 25 minutes walk to the Trevi Fountain. So it's really quite close.
But you're not going to walk with your suitcase.
No, but it just shows you how close it is.
Yes. There's a lot of hotels around there as well, isn't there?
Sure.
Much closer.
Yeah, and it's quite modern.
Modern.
It's clean. It's more like an airport with the shopping arcades and that sort of stuff. Exceptionally busy, but really well signed.
It was easy to get in and out of.
Yeah, and then, like everything, you're always worried about getting a taxi outside train station and airport. Well, at the old Roma Termini,
yes,
it was fabulous. There was basically 3 lanes, and it was so well organised, and it was just a dream. And our taxi driver, Leanne, was smart enough to ask him how much, showed him with the address, which was Via de Lupa.
Della Lupa or Del Lupa?
Della Lupa.
Of the
that's where the street. That's the street. Anyway,
Lupa means wolf.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And anyway, she
he told me the price.
But because when we got there, he told us that the meter was broken, and which is unusual.
And also, he didn't have any connection.
And he only wanted cash.
Yeah. But that's okay.
That's all right. Anyway.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the apartment?
Yeah, I was going to say our apartment was great. We were in a nice central position. About 10-minute walk to the Trevi Fountain, about a 15-20-minute walk to the Colosseum, and about a 35-minute walk to the Vatican, like we're going to talk about. But the apartment was on the 5th floor, so luckily we had the slowest lift in the whole world. I thought our apartment was, but this one took the cake. And it was because it was on the 5th floor. It had a nice balcony, and I think you pointed out that Rome has between 900 and 1,000 churches, so domes to look at. So
there's plenty of domes to look at.
So yeah. So obviously we had a nice view from there. It was quite spacious. The bedroom was separate and big, but the little kitchen was behind a couple of doors.
Yeah, that was unreal. That was really unique. Yeah, it was almost like the kitchen was in a cupboard.
Yeah.
But everything was there. It was perfect.
Well, the amount of cooking you did, that's all we needed, right?
Zero. The only thing I thought about the apartment was the shower was incredibly small. But
that's not the first one.
We found that a lot in Europe. But as you said, the location was perfecto.
Yes. Anyway, before we get on to today's topic of the Vatican, I just wanted to let you guys know, you're obviously travel lovers, and I want to let you know about a newsletter that I read every week, and and it's like a blog site as well. I've been sort of subscribed for a long time, and it's called City.Travel, and it's by Jane and Duncan. They're another Australian couple. And I always look forward to Sundays when it comes into my mailbox because there's lots of tips in there. Like this week, they had tips all about planning a trip to the USA, which, is on our list somewhere. So it was really helpful. I got some great, tips out of that. But listen to this. This is what I love about it. Their motto is, age is no barrier when it comes to travel, inspiring you to travel the world. Because that's basically how we feel too, isn't it?
Well, I'm inspired.
You are inspired. And you're not too old to travel the world.
No.
So I'll put a link to their website in the show notes so you can check it out. But it's travel2.com. And anyway, now let's get back to today's show, all about the Vatican. Yes?
See. Yeah, look, I was so surprised that Leanne really had no idea about the Vatican City. But now I think about it, I've come... I was brought up Roman Catholic, so I've got an idea about the Vatican City. But, so...
Well, I didn't know. When you hear about the Vatican, you hear about the Vatican, Vatican City, Vatican Museum, and, and St. Peter's, Square, and St. Peter's Cathedral and Basilica. And, I was confused. And I said to Lyle, is Vatican City the same as the Vatican? What is it? Because, we don't say the Sydney or, the Brisbane, but you do. And it's the same thing. The Vatican and Vatican City is the same thing. It's the area of it's the smallest country, isn't it, really, in the world?
Yeah, well, look, I've got to admit, I didn't really have any idea about the Papal States. Okay, which is sort of the history that we're going to talk about.
Yes.
When the Roman Empire basically fell, they left the void of authority, and because Constantine the First had declared the Roman Catholic the true religion, the Roman Catholic Church took over the power.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is then they basically took over what was left of the Roman Empire. Then, as time went on, in the 18th century, the Papal States included most of Central Europe. So the Catholic Church or the Pope controlled all that. And obviously there was a little bit of untidiness, or not untidiness, but with the rest of the Italian population. So as secular power grew stronger, they were able to chip away at the papal territory. The French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars also did damage to the Republic of St. Peter. Eventually, during the course of the Italian unification in the 19th century, the Papal States were annexed to Italy. Now, this all basically came to a head at a battle. After the Battle of Porta Pia in 1870, a battle led by Pope the Fifth, Pius V, right? So basically the Pope led his army to maintain his sovereignty over the Papal States. Rome was declared the new capital of Italy. So all of a sudden, they lost everything.
Mm.
So what happened then is that the Pope refused, it was like something like 60 years, he refused to leave the Vatican. And it became a bit of a problem. So to get around this, the Lateran Treaty was established between Benito Mussolini and the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church in the year 1929. In made Vatican City actually a country and gave it independence from the affairs of Italy. Mussolini supported the Catholic policies regarding divorce and abortion and Catholicism as Italy's state religion. So basically, it was like
1920 something.
Yeah, 1929. So after the First World War, before the Second World War. So
that's when it became.
It became its own state, and it's basically, I think it's 0.4 square kilometre in size.
Yeah, it's tiny.
So you know.
So that's quite So now I understand how the Vatican came about. Because we walk everywhere when we go places. Like we could have got a taxi. It was about a 35-minute walk, pretty easy walk from where we stayed to the Vatican. We were on the east side of the river.
West. We were on the east side, so we had to cross across to the west side.
Yeah. So that's the Tiber River, isn't it?
Correct.
And I was quite fascinated by that because it had these huge what do you
embankments.
Call it? Yeah, right. Like cement though.
Walls,
basically. Didn't they?
Yeah, but basically the Tiber River embankments work began in 1876, basically after there was huge floods, and it was quite common for the Tiber River to flood. It was completed in 1926. So, basically we're talking, 50 years.
Yeah, but about the same time that Vatican City became about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, they stand 12 metres or 40 feet high and stretch for 8 kilometres or 5 miles.
So this is like the cement embankments along the river.
Yeah. Well, and look, it's huge, and of course you've got all the bridges and obviously they're historical bridges.
It's quite nice to look at now, and because the river doesn't flood now as much, it
can't.
Yeah. There's a lot of little houseboats and restaurants and things floating on the Tiber River as well, and that looks really nice as you're walking across those ancient bridges to get to the other side.
Well, it still rains pretty heavy because on the way back from the Vatican we got drowned.
We got caught in the rain.
But the funny thing about that is the hawkers, that have got all the stands, they must have it well prepared because everybody was selling umbrellas. As soon as that rain started, there was umbrellas for sale everywhere.
I would just wish I had my plastic shoe covers that day from Venice.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. So you walk along and look at no time do you feel unsafe.
No.
And it's a reasonably long walk, I suppose 35, 40 minutes.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, but we didn't feel unsafe at all. It was really good.
There's a lot of people walking that way. And there was some massive government buildings we walked past as well on the way.
Yeah, there was, a couple of law buildings.
Supreme Law Court and stuff. That was impressive. But as soon as we got there, the first thing you see, because I've never been, I had no idea what to expect. Like, in your mind you think the Vatican City, I'm thinking it's another country, how do we, I was so intrigued as to what we're going to come across. And the first thing we come across are these massive walls.
Yeah, yep.
So there's walls all the way around.
Yeah, look,
and you can't see in.
Yeah, the walls were originally started by Pope Leo IV, 1847 to 1855, and then basically was expanded by another 3 popes, basically finishing off with Pope Pius IV, and he reigned from 1559 to 1565. So over a period of time, the walls just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So
they've got the walls, but as I said, you can't get in. But you actually can. There's some other gates or arches that you can go through to get into St. Peter's Square.
Sure, that's true. Yeah.
So if you can get into the area and have a look around without actually having to go in through the Vatican museums. And that's what it is now too. That's the other thing, like when you go to the Vatican, it's actually museums that you're looking at. So
that's part of it. That's probably where they make their money. But there's also.
So when you do the tour, though, when you book a tour for the Vatican, you're actually booking a tour to go through the Vatican museums. Yeah.
The museums, including the Sistine Chapel, and then St. Peter's Basilica.
Is an add-on. But I just want to talk about. We're going to talk about the modern Vatican, but do you want to do that first, and then I'll talk about our tour a little bit? And give some recommendations on what tours I think are best based on what we've seen. Yeah. So.
Probably just some information if you do decide to go to the Vatican. The population of the Vatican is 800. To get in, adults are $17, and children from $17. That's just entry. That's not with a tour or that sort of stuff. Children 6 to 18, €8, and an extra €5 to skip the line. The last Sunday of every month is free. Be aware that shoulders and knees must be covered and no hats. Backpacker lockers are available, but just to make you aware that that's a bit of a pain in the ass because
where you start,
go on.
You're like maybe 4 kilometres away to when you finish to come back to
so you've got to go back to.
So you can't carry backpacks, although there were some little backpacks, so I don't know how they get around that. And one of the guys on our tour had an umbrella, and he couldn't take that either. And he decided just to donate that to the Vatican.
I think they'd have a few umbrellas. It's a little bit like us when we had the motel and we had all the phone charges. People just forget them. Okay, so there are lockers, obviously, from the backpacks.
Say packback again?
I can't say it. And it's English. Normally I have trouble with Italian. You will go through security screening, and they're quite attentive on that. There are public toilets.
They're more on your security than the airport.
Like they're really strict actually. A small group tour would probably take you about 3.5 hours to do the museum, the Sistine Chapel, and St. Peter's. You can take photos in the museum, but you can't use a flash, and you can't take any photos at all in the Sistine Chapel.
Correct, yeah.
And
that's a good segue. I got some beautiful photos. You're not going to believe we're going to talk about how beautiful these things are, but you remember this is episode 65 if you go to the website and check them out there.
Okay, you can purchase tickets up to 60 days in advance, which is what you did.
Yep.
You bought the tickets really early. It's open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through to Saturday with final entry, you've got to be in by 4 p.m. There's 34 galleries, and these galleries are comprised of 1,400 rooms.
Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, so you're never going to see it. Well, not everything's open all the time anyway.
Okay. What we haven't talked about, which we'll have to come to, is what's actually in the Vatican City besides the museums, like how, that sort of thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I just want to talk quickly about if you're going to do a tour. Now, you feel a lot of pressure. Well, I did when you're going to Rome to go to the Vatican. It's one of the most visited places in the world. They have something like over 5 million visitors every year. And so there's all this talk now about how, the last few years it's so busy, so you got to go early, get the early tickets, and so you buy the early ticket and you think you're going to go at 7:15, right? But you meet at 7:15 or 7 o'clock. And I thought, we've got this tour, and we turn up and there would have been 100 people, right? Sure. And they've all got the skip the line early tours. Right? So it's a bit,
we didn't feel special for that long.
No. So it's a bit of a furphy. However, they put you in groups of 10 to 15, and our group was 10, and we sort of took off first, and so we actually then go and line up. So you actually line up. So it's not really skip the line. The skip the line people are lining up to go in, and the doors don't open till 8. So we were first in line to go in at 8. But there were people going in before us. Now, those people were doing the breakfast tour. So you can actually pay to do it's about $180, sorry, Australian, to do the same tour but with breakfast, and you go in earlier. Now, so I've read a few reviews about the breakfast, and most people weren't that impressed because the breakfast was okay. It was in the Pinecone courtyard, which we're going to talk about. But by the time they finished breakfast, there's all these other people who come in ahead of them.
Yeah, they lost their advantage.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, but it's still nice to be sitting there in that beautiful courtyard and and be having the buffet breakfast. So just something to think about.
Yeah, and the other side of it too is that the actual 4 public doors only open at 9 o'clock. So even at 8 o'clock, if you're on a tour, you've still got an hour ahead of the general public.
And there are people lining up. When we got to our tour beginning spot at 7 a.m. with tickets, there were people lining up outside waiting to get the tickets on their own, and so they'd been there. There's quite a long line, so there are people lining up to get their own tickets for the day, right?
I just couldn't understand why you wouldn't pay the extra to skip the line.
Anyway, that's the thing. All right, so let's now talk about what we saw inside the Vatican. So we've waited at the entrance. We've gone through with our guide. We've gone through security. She's bought the tickets, and we're off. And the first thing we do was it escalators or a lift?
No, it's a lift.
Okay, I thought it was escalators. Okay, lift, escalators. We go up, put it that way. And we start at this big sort of outdoor courtyard area that which is basically, like a nice little secret place. Not many people go there to get the best view of St. Peter's Dome over the Vatican City. Yeah. And from there also there's some garden area which are beautiful as well. And once again I've got photos of those, and you'll see what I mean. But that was a pretty impressive way to start the tour. And then our tour guide, she was great. She so she, started telling us all sorts of information, and it's information overload, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so from there we moved on. Yes.
Well, from there, as you said, we were sort of up high, and then we were looking down onto the car park, basically, of the Vatican, and within that is basically where the business centre of the Vatican is. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's true. So we're seeing the museums, but the Vatican obviously is a running business, a running church, a running community, and it's down there. It's like this big courtyard full of cars, and there's fire engines, and that's when our guide says to us, the Vatican basically is its own country and operates like such. It has its own train station, its own supermarkets. It has its own, the only thing it doesn't have really is a hospital. So the people who work there pay no tax. They've all got their own passports.
Yeah, that's correct. They've got their own money.
Vatican coins or whatever they're called. Their own post office sort of system as well. Anything else I've missed there? I just found that fascinating, because one side of the road you're Rome, and the other side you're in the Vatican. It's a whole new country.
As you say, it's a city within a city.
Yeah, so people live in there, like 800 people.
Yeah, that's right.
Or 799 plus the Pope.
Yeah.
All right. So, fascinating sort of story about that. So we move on from there.
Yeah, and we head down to the Pinecone courtyard. It's a large open space of 300 square metres adjacent to the corridors and the halls of the museum.
Yes.
It is a huge bronze cone.
Well, there is a huge bronze cone,
4 metres high and 2.5 metres wide. Dates back to the 2nd century and has a meaning of immortality and rebirth. It's located on top of a double ramp staircase designed by Michelangelo.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, wasn't it? Yeah,
like it's not
fancy. It's just a nice big pine cone.
Well, the thing is, it's from the 2nd century.
Yeah.
That's what got me.
And it's still sitting out there in the...
Yeah, and then, it's complemented by the staircase. And then there's another important sculpture,
this one was really impressive,
yeah, which is the sphere within the sphere. It was done by Arnaldo Pomodoro, Did you get that? El Nardo Pomodoro. It sounded like I'm Italian.
Damn it, he got it right.
As a symbol of the emergence of the new world from the old. It's shining bronze and measures 4 meters in diameter. It is really quite
modern.
Spectacular.
It looks really...
It is modern.
Yeah.
It was in the 1900s it was actually made.
It's this big round sphere, and inside there's like another sphere going round and round. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you move on, and there's a really famous statue, which is the Laocoon and his son sculpture. Has been one of the most famous ancient sculptures since it was excavated in Rome in 1506. In white marble, with the entire group measuring 2 meters, it depicts the Trojan priest Laocoon and his 2 sons being attacked by sea serpents.
Yeah.
And basically the sea serpents are from Poseidon, the god of, the Greek god of the sea. And what I've found is a lot of these ancient sculptures are all based on mythical gods.
Sure.
And so, that's just a very, 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 very famous statue. There's no one knows who actually made it, but obviously it's
that
famous.
Courtyard's very impressive. It's got beautiful green grass area as well, and the whole 4 sides that surround it, are a part of the Vatican Museum. So it's an ancient building as well.
Yeah. So then you basically, from this particular area, you head into the corridors of the museum.
And now you sort of basically, thank goodness you've got a guide, because there's all those rooms, as you said before, and we're obviously not seeing all of them, but we're taking a path to see the ones that she thinks are obviously the best.
Yeah,
and most
basically
popular.
the highlights of the museum. So
we got to see a few little extra things that we went to a couple of little rooms that others didn't seem to be, but we were ahead of most people, and we got plenty time to see the artwork, didn't we, without feeling crowded in?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so where did we start?
Well, I've got this. It's not necessarily where we started, but the highlights for me were, or for us were, what we actually saw
sure.
was Raphael's Transfiguration is the last painted by the Italian High Renaissance master Raphael.
Yeah. So there's a couple of smaller rooms that had just artwork, and that one was in there.
Commissioned by Cardinal Guido de' Medici. The Medicis are in there again, who later became Pope Clementine VII. It is divided into 2 distinct parts: the miracle of the possessed boy on the lower level, and the miracle of the possessed boy was Jesus Christ came down. This young fella, he had some issues and frothing at the mouth and whatever, frothing at the mouth, contorting on the ground, having a fit basically.
Yeah.
And the legend goes that our Lord came down and basically cured him. And then the second part of the painting and the Transfiguration of Christ on Mount Tabor in the background. The Transfiguration, Christ floats in an aura of light and cloud above the hill, accompanied by Moses and Elijah. Preparation drawing. Now, the preparations drawing, not the painting, the preparations drawings for this masterpiece fetched $47 million at auction in 2012.
That's pretty impressive.
I was blown away when I found that out.
Yeah. All right, it's time now to get on to the good stuff. Let's do this.
All right. Well, probably my favourite room was the Rotunda room.
Oh, I'll tell you my favourite in a minute.
Okay. It was built by Michelangelo during
It's like a hexagonal room that you come across.
Yeah. During the pontification of Pope Pius VI. It was modelled after the Pantheon, including an oculus, which is basically a hole in the roof, in the ceiling, and decorative rosettes in each of the niches in the dome.
So
now, that oculus is basically what you'd call a
skylight.
Now, so it's the weather obviously can't come in. Whereas at the It can.
Yes.
Now there's this huge bathtub in the middle of this particular room.
Yes.
And the bathtub
it's dark. You think, is it a bathtub?
Well, it's a porphyry basin. Was commissioned by the first century Roman Emperor Nero.
What does porphyry mean? Is that a type of marble?
It's a type of marble. Okay. I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so this is in the first century from Emperor Nero, which was the basically emperor when Jesus Christ was crucified. For his famously decadent architectural vanity project, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, valued by some as high as $2 billion. It stretches a whopping 25 feet in diameter, and it's made of deep porphyry marble. The stone was quarried from a single source in Egypt, and no other deposits have ever been found. So
there's this massive, 25 foot, which is, I don't know how many meters, almost 5 meters, I guess, maybe more than that. What's 25 feet? Anyway, doesn't matter. In the middle of this room. Now, this room itself has a big dome or opulus, as you said, and it's this dark. It's almost like maroon.
No, it's purple. They say that it's
purple's
purple.
It's not purple.
No, it's more maroon than purple.
Thank you, but I was trying to describe it. But thank you for that.
Okay,
and
sorry.
it's one big lump. And so this guy Nero wanted it for his his vanity house, and it's come from Egypt, and it's sitting there in one of the Vatican museum rooms.
What gets me is how the hell
they got it there.
They get this one piece of stone that I think it's 325 ton, and don't get me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's that big.
Okay.
And how the hell they would have had to take it across the Nile.
I know,
right?
Yeah.
They would have, it's just amazing.
The other things in the room, though, like there's some other things made of something a similar colour, and they are like, what do they bury people in? Are they tomb things? Some of those tombs. And the floor?
Yeah, the floor is made up of intricately designed mosaics from around the 2nd century. Yeah. The dome has paintings, some simulating marble reliefs or mosaics.
Yeah.
Look, everywhere you go in this museum, even the corridors, the ceilings, the paintings on the ceilings, and it's huge.
But I've got some really lovely photos of this big bath and the rotunda room. And so if you go to beachtravelwine.com and the podcast page, this is episode 65, and you'll see some of those. So did we move on from there?
Yeah, then we walked along and we found the gallery of the tapestries.
Oh, no, maybe this could have been one of my favourites, but only because, tell the story about how they're made. That's the thing. It's this huge, long hallway, basically, isn't it?
It's 250 metres long.
Yeah, and what would you say, maybe 10 metres wide?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, but basically...
And so when you're standing at the beginning, you can see the ceiling, which is painted decoratively, and then the walls... we're covered in these giant, ancient, stunning tapestries just hanging, lining the walls, yeah?
Yeah, so it's divided into two, with the tapestries on the left as you enter, depicting scenes from the life of Christ, and the tapestries on the right showing the life of Pope Urban VIII. Raphael, and his surname, which I never ever knew until I read this up, is Sanzio. So Raphael Sanzio. So Raphael and his students made what were called cartoons, which were large-scale drawings that were then shipped to Brussels in Belgium, where they were woven in silk and wool.
Yeah, so these tapestries are sort of soft to look at. Obviously you don't touch them, but you can see that they're made from special fibres, yeah?
Yeah. Look, there are some, there's probably three, I suppose, tapestries which are quite disturbing, and one of them...
I wouldn't say disturbing, I'd say incredible.
Okay. The tapestry shows us the massacre of the innocents.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Okay,
you're right.
yeah.
Disturbing, yeah. I'm back.
So,
sorry.
according to the Bible ordered by King Herod, who had learned that the Messiah King was born. So we're in this particular...
Where they went and killed all the baby boys.
To try and get the Messiah. And within the tapestry, it's obviously got the mothers frantic and, trying to hide their children. But to me...
When we say tapestries, a lot of people probably just think, geometric designs or something, but these are actually...
they
massive,
look like paintings.
Yes, exactly. They're scenes from the Bible.
And incredibly, if you gaze into the eyes of Christ...
Now, this is the one I was saying was incredible. Okay. There's a couple of them like this.
Yeah. If you gaze into the eyes of Christ, you will find through illusionistic methods, it appears that Christ's eyes follow you as you walk down the room.
Yeah, so there's a couple of them that you stand in one spot and then you go and, that Jesus is looking at you, and then you go down further, like right past it the other way. So he's basically his eyes look like they've basically done a whole 180 degrees.
Yeah. So as you walk along, it's not like you start and then you get to the end and he's looking at you. It's all the way.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And apparently it's the same technique as what Leonardo da Vinci used in the Mona Lisa.
Okay. Well, what they've said, though, is they wove some sort of reflective threads in for that, I thought. Yeah.
And then you look at the ceiling.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Now,
sorry, God.
It is completely flat, but the illusion of 3D appearance is down to the genius of the 18th century artists who learned how to trick the mind and, with their skill, to paint shadow and light on a 2D surface.
And you have to look at the photos to see that, because I actually reckon the ceilings are almost more impressive than anything else in the Vatican museums. Like, honestly, they are, you can't believe that it's flat and they've done that. And they did it centuries ago, not now, but centuries ago, right? Centuries. That room was amazing, and I could have spent longer looking at all of them. I don't know how many there were in total, but there's you could have just looked. I reckon the guides would go in there and they'd look at the tapestries every time and see something different. That's how big they were and how intricate they are, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that?
Yeah, look, it was incredible. Look, I reckon you could spend a week at the Vatican alone. And like we were talking about 1,400 rooms.
Yeah.
But then we headed off into the maps room.
We did. So tell me about the map room, Lyle.
Okay. It consists of 40 frescoes of maps detailing the Italian regions and papal properties that existed during the time of Pope Gregory the 13th, and where we can thank Gregory the 13th for the Gregorian calendar.
Whatever that means. So when you say 40 frescoes, they are massive. Like, it's not just a couple of little maps on a wall. This is like another hallway.
Floor to ceiling.
Yeah, floor to ceiling maps. This one, I think, is about 120 metres long. It's not quite as long as the other one. And
yeah, you're correct. 120 metres long.
Yeah, that's right. 120 metres long, and so there must be about 20 of these huge frescoes on each side. Yeah?
Correct.
And they're depicting the areas of Italy from centuries ago.
Correct.
And they're about 80% correct.
They've taken obviously photos and they've used what do they call it these days, the GPS.
Yeah.
And they've compared it and it's pretty much 80% correct.
That's a fascinating little not little. The
gallery. Frescoes were created by Ignazio Dante between 1580 and 1585. Each of the frescoes features a different region of Italy, with the region's major city specifically pinpointed and achieved. Yeah, we talked about the 80%.
Yeah.
Now the ceiling is decorated with stucco and gold leaf, which is basically gold.
Yes. Stuck on the stucco. Yeah.
The ceiling is a mixture of saints, martyrs, apostles, and other important figures in Christianity.
So once again, you've got these. You just can't believe the I don't know, say wowness isn't a word, but you just think after you've seen the tapestries, and the rotunda room, and now you got these maps that have been there for. When did you say 1580? Like that's...
1580 and 1585.
And they're not just moved there. They've been painted actually there.
Correct.
This is where they were painted, and then they've covered the ceiling in gold.
Yeah. And look, one of the funny things in this particular one, the map of Lazio, which is Rome's in Lazio, right?
Yeah.
St. Peter's Basilica, which was still being constructed at the time, the square hasn't yet been built with the huge colonnades. So it's actually before St. Peter's was there. So, I find that incredible.
Yeah. So definitely check out the photos of that, because there were quite a few people around at this stage, and it's hard to get a picture of the maps, but you can see the hallway, you can see the maps on the side, and you can see that beautiful ceiling, and then the doorways. I've got waited till everyone was out of the way, and I got a photo sort of at the end where you go through the door, which is all decorated as well. So that was pretty impressive. And another place not far from that was,
and I reckon this is going to be your favourite.
Maybe, yeah.
I got the impression when we were there that you were blown away with this place. It's 2 rooms.
What is it?
It's called the Hall of Animals.
Yes, or as I like to call it, as our guide told me, it was called the Marble Zoo.
You're probably right. Was set up under Pope Pius the Sixth, with antique works of art, often much restored and sometimes completely reworked. In the hall, it is the animal who are the protagonist, and can be seen both in curious interaction between one another, and also in relation to heroes and gods of the ancient world. Coloured marbles were used to elude the colours of the coat or plumage of the various animals. The one I remembered the most, was the leopard, and it was...
So they found marble that had spots on it, whereas I remembered the lion, and I got a couple of photos of that, the lion, because it was sort of on the mane. You could see the marble streaks sort of going through the statue, sort of showing the flowing of the mane away from the lion's head. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, but
little rabbits, and there's lots of little animals.
Rhinoceros.
Yeah,
like all these animals that you think. I don't know why. I have no idea why I think this way, but I thought, they actually existed back then? Like all these dogs, as you said, rabbits, everything, and turtles.
Yeah.
And then you'd have
a crab.
Yeah, a crab, and then you've had around the outside of the actual the walls, you had all these animals with Neptune, Zeus, all these mythical gods. It was incredible, really good.
And just off that, which I know you haven't mentioned in your notes there, but I also remember this room because no one else got to see it. She said this is a bit of a treat. It's called the mask room, and I thought we were actually going to look at masks, but what it was like a tile mosaic on the floor.
That's right.
which is the original, and there was probably about 15 different little squares with pictures, and in those pictures, the mosaic on the floor, the characters had different masks on their face. So they had happy, and they had surprised, and she was saying that's once again that's centuries old, and that's the original right there on the floor. That was incredible.
And they look absolutely spectacular.
They do, yeah. So that was one of the benefits of going on this tour. She showed us a couple little rooms like that one.
Okay, you ready for it?
I am ready.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Sistine Chapel.
Okay, so we're sort of through the Vatican Museum highlights that we saw.
Yep.
Now, can I just quickly say in here, I'm going to waffle a bit. Not being a Catholic and not understanding much about what I was going to see, I've been told you'd be blown away, but there's so much to see in these Vatican museums, and I now know why everyone goes. And people who say, don't go, it's too busy, find a way to go. Find a way to go early, find a way to go off season. But if you're going to be in Rome, you can't miss the Vatican museums. There's nothing like it in the world. Like, it's just spectacular, yeah?
Yeah. Look, in the Sistine Chapel, basically it's...
He liked that, yeah, let's move on.
No,
Time's running out.
No fluff. Get rid of the fluff, Leanne told me. It's basically the Pope's private chapel, and this particular room is used for electing new popes.
So everyone has heard of the Sistine Chapel, right?
Yep.
The Vatican, Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Basilica.
Yep.
So I don't know what I was expecting, but you go through all these corridors and museums and rooms and you finally end up through this funny little hallway and we're told to go up the stairs and in you go, sort of thing.
And there are public toilets just before you go in.
Oh,
I'm not sure why they did that, but it is there.
Well, it was helpful. I went.
Yes, and I think I did too.
Yeah.
Look, the ceiling was painted in fresco by Michelangelo between 1508.
That's what everyone knows about it, right?
And 1512, right? And they often say that he laid down and the scaffolding was so he could lay down to do it, but in actual fact he didn't. He stood up.
They give you actually a printed sheet with all the pictures on them and numbered and the names of them. So when the guide's telling us about them before we went in, when you look up, you know what you're looking at. It's not just like a jumble of photos, but it depicts the Old Testament, doesn't it?
It does. It's basically the main ceiling is 9. There's 9 parts to it, and 3 are based on the creation of heaven and earth. The next 3 are the creation of Adam and Eve, and the last 3 are Noah and the Great Flood. So that's the main.
Yeah, but the one in the middle, the creation of heaven and earth.
Correct.
Interesting, God in that is wearing a big sort of maroon cape and it's flying out behind him. And it wasn't sort of picked up until, more recent years and I'm sure people have seen it, but there was like a neurosurgeon or someone, looking up at it. And he pointed out that the cape of God, when you look at it one way, is actually almost the exact same shape as a heart, so that's sort of giving life, right?
Yeah.
And you can see like the valves, leading out of the heart. And then if you turn around and look the opposite way, it then looks like a brain.
Yeah.
So and because there's sort of things in behind the cape, between God and the cape, it almost looked like the brain inside the brain, the outside. I found that fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, look, absolutely, and so.
And then that's the ceiling.
That's the ceiling,
and then the back wall.
Yeah, look, and there's more in the ceiling, but that's the main part of it.
Yeah.
So
that's all painted by Michelangelo, and that took a while. Yeah.
Yeah, that took 4 years.
Yes.
And the funny part of that.
He didn't want to do it, did he?
He didn't want to do it.
He got asked 3 times.
Yeah, so it was Pope Pius II, which was the warrior pope, and Michelangelo
thought I'm a sculptor now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow myself to paint, especially a ceiling.
Basically, so Pope, he knocked back the Pope 3 times until eventually the Pope suggested that best he do it because otherwise he would do something to Florence.
Yes.
So he implied that. So Michelangelo basically said, fair enough, okay, I'll do that. And but the actual walls,
yes,
they were painted by late 15th century masters, including Sandro Botticelli, Domenico Ghirlandaio, and Pietro Perugino.
Yes.
Raphael created a set of large tapestries to cover the lower portion of the walls.
Yeah.
So, and then once that was sort of organised, Michelangelo returned to the chapel to create the Last Judgment, a large wall fresco situated behind the altar. Central to the ceiling's decorations are not. Going back. Sorry.
So this is a smaller chapel that is the Pope's private chapel. So it's decorated all by Raphael's tapestries, Michelangelo's ceiling, and the wall at the back. And we got to. When we went in, there was plenty of room, and we could actually sit. There were chairs along or a bench along the side.
Yeah.
And you just sit there and gaze at it, don't you?
Yeah, and that also shows you how well they control the crowds, because you could spend as much time as you like. And as Lan said, as you walk through, you see the Last Judgment, and the Last Judgment, for those that are not aware of it, is based on the last day on earth, and it depicts God and Jesus and on the top, and those that are going to heaven, and those people that are going to hell down the bottom. Now,
I'll see you there.
Okay, but ironically, one of the particular people that's down the bottom of this painting is a cardinal. Well, was painted in the image of a drawing of one of the cardinals that Michelangelo couldn't stand, and he had all the run-ins with. So he actually painted him in going to hell.
But if you don't, even if you're not like Catholic or religious, you that's the story of it, but the artwork of it and just being in this in the Sistine Chapel was mind-blowing, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, and there was another controversy.
Yes.
After Michelangelo's death, artist Daniele del Volterra was hired to cover up some of the genitals in the Last Judgment by adding leaves and loincloths. Now, this quite often happened with Michelangelo. He obviously.
I'm going to paint it, and you're going to leave Florence alone. But I'm going to show everybody.
It was obviously a smart ass.
Yeah. So we thoroughly enjoyed our time. In the Sistine Chapel. Yes, didn't we?
Oh, look, it was amazing.
So we leave the Sistine Chapel through a little side door, and we end up in this big, wide sort of corridor.
Corridor, formerly for the exclusive use of the Pope, that goes from the Sistine Chapel directly into St. Peter's Basilica and Square.
Yeah, so before COVID, the general public never got to use this area. It was like when, like the leaders of other countries and people came to the Vatican, that's the entrance that they would come through. So that was pretty impressive, wasn't it?
Oh, look, it's huge and it's so elaborate, and and down the entrance of that you there see the Swiss guards.
Yeah. So they're still doing security in their original uniforms.
Yeah,
I've got a couple of photos of those.
Yeah, and the uniforms are blue, red, orange, and yellow.
Yeah, bright.
Yeah, they're really bright. But okay, so we're now at St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah, so you come out of the Vatican and you're right there, in St. Peter's Square.
Yep.
And it's quite a short walk, but you've got to walk up through the square a little bit to get to the entrance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
past the huge lineup of everyone else because we've got skip the line tickets.
So it's open 7 days a week from 7 until 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
St. Peter's Basilica is free, but you should expect long queues of at least 2 hours. To avoid the long queues, book online tours and skip the line. Yeah, basically the same dress regulations for as in the Vatican. So you've got to dress respectfully, basically.
And there are people checking that as you go in.
Yeah. Now, there is a cost to climb the dome.
Yeah.
It's €8 via the stairs and €10 to take the lift. The climb involves climbing a total of 551 steps, which become progressively narrower and more winding, ending in a tight corkscrew staircase.
So therefore, Leanne didn't go.
Correct. Now, even if you use the lift and pay the €8,
€10 for the lift, you said.
That's right. €10. Sorry. There's still 320 steps, so I'm not sure what the benefit is.
Because when you get up there, the view of Rome is spectacular.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the actual staircase is the Bramante staircase, which is the guy that designed it.
And you can go out into the roof and see the statues out there.
Yeah, well, the benefits of going up there, as Leanne says, the amazing views of Rome. Looking down inside St. Peter's Basilica, so looking down into would be amazing.
I remember doing that in St. Mark's in Venice, how good that was.
You get a close-up look at the spectacular mosaics within the staircase. Yeah. You can walk on the roof to see Christ and his 12 apostles that you see from the square. And, I didn't realise this, but St. Peter's Dome is the tallest dome in the world.
Fascinating. So we get through into the... we skip the line pretty easily.
Are you going to let me do the history?
Sure, but and we then start to learn about the history. I was ready for it.
Sure, no more fluff. Okay.
Well, and some of the history let's move on.
It was initially planned by Pope Nicholas V and then Pope Julius II to replace the aging old St. Peter's Basilica, which was built in the 4th century by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. Construction of the present basilica began on the 18th of April 1506 and was completed on the 18th of November 1626. Designed principally by Donato Bramante, Michelangelo, Carlo Maderno, and Gian Lorenzo Bernini, and is the largest church in the world by interior measurements. The length is 220 metres or 720 feet. The width is 150 metres or 490 feet. The height is 136.6 metres or 448 feet.
Yeah.
100 of the 264 deceased popes are buried there. Mm-hmm. Catholic tradition holds that the basilica is the burial site of St. Peter, chief among Jesus' apostles and also the first Pope of Rome. St. Peter's tomb is supposedly directly below the high altar. So that's the history of it.
Cool.
But when you come down from the Vatican, the first thing you see is St. Peter's Square.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me what you thought.
Well, it's massive, right?
Yep.
So it's got these. It's not square. I don't know why they say it's square, because the colonnade, that go around the outside of it are sort of semicircular in shape. And at the top of that is the huge staircase and the columns and the front of St. Peter's Basilica. And then you've got this big open square where I know they put chairs for people to see the Pope. And then there's this big obelisk in the middle, and then these huge 2 big fountains. And, then you turn around and look away from the Basilica, and you can just see this huge sort of road path that leads out of St. Peter's Square almost all the way down to the Tiber River. It's it's like out of a movie. What can I say?
Okay, let's give you the.
Was that okay?
Oh, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. But I'll give you the details of it.
Oh, okay.
At the centre of the square is an ancient Egyptian obelisk. Now they say that's 4,000 years old.
Yep.
It's 83 feet and it weighs 326 tons.
Oh, that maybe the Bath weighs more. Anyway, go on.
It was erected in its current site in 1586. It was brought back from Egypt by Emperor Caligula.
They like the Egyptian stuff, didn't they?
They did. And I think that was a bit of a show-off thing that they'd actually gone over and conquered them. It's a little bit like old what's the French guy's name?
Yeah, Napoleon.
Napoleon's deal with the Arc de Triomphe.
Now we're doing fluff. Come on.
The Bernini designed the square almost 100 years later after the obelisk.
Yeah.
Including the massive colonnades, 4 columns deep, a diameter of 240 metres, and it is made with 284 columns, 16 metres high, a granite fountain constructed by Bernini in 1675 matches another fountain designed by Carlo Maderno in 1613.
Right, so those fountains look identical, but they were, made, like 60 years apart.
Yep.
But what Lyle just sort of skimmed over there, really, like the colonnades, right?
Yep.
So they're the things that surround St. Peter's Square. So think about that. There's how many columns? 284 columns, right?
Yeah.
16 metres high.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
4 deep.
Yeah.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
I know. You just sort of you rattled those numbers off like it's nothing. It's impressive. It makes you feel tiny, that's just coming into St. Peter's Square, right? Yes.
Yeah, look, the open space which lies before the Basilica was designed so the greatest number of could see the Pope give his blessing, either from the middle of the facade of the church or from a window in the Vatican Palace. Its dimensions are spectacular, 320 metres long and 240 metres wide. And basically it has a standing room of 500,000 people. At the top of the balustrades are 140, so they're basically on the roof.
Yeah, so you've got all these balustrades, these columns, and then there's like statues everywhere. Like
there's 140 statues.
140 life size. Like what?
Representing Catholic saints at the base of the great staircase that leads to the Basilica. There are two large statues of St. Peter and St. Paul in an act of waving to the faithful.
Yeah, so then they're at the bottom, and there's this huge big staircase that you go up to get to the entrance of St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah, well,
and you can go there for free. You can actually go into St. Peter's Square. You can enter, easily through there and just go and see that.
Yeah, sure.
And it's be worth doing that. If you can't do anything else, go there, right?
Well, and now we go into St. Peter's Basilica.
We're going to take you for a quick walking tour through St. Peter's Basilica. We've given you the history and you probably know what we're going to say because everything else we've mentioned in this podcast about the Vatican and St. Peter's has just been spectacular, right? And there's no other word to describe the inside of this church, Basilica Cathedral. We've been through quite a lot through Europe, and nothing compares to you. That's timely, isn't it?
I think you might have started off a bit high there, love.
Anyway, go on.
Look, it's huge.
Yeah.
They say the Statue of Liberty, including foundations, would fit inside St. Peter's Basilica. The interior is 15,160 square metres.
Yeah.
The entire interior is lavishly decorated with marble reliefs, architectural sculptures and gilding. The basilica contains a large number of tombs of popes and other notable people, many of which are considered outstanding artworks.
So when you've just sort of skimmed over that, like gilding,
Okay, the gilding. You want to know what the gilding is?
Sure, I do, because if you had to describe inside of St. Peter's in one word, I'd say gold.
Yeah. Look, Lan and I talked about this obviously before the podcast because I never knew what gilded was, and I'd known what gold leaf is. Well, basically they're similar, but how they do it, the bronze surface would be coated with a mixture of ground high-grade carat gold and mercury, then heated over open fire. While the gold adhered to the base metal, the mercury would evaporate, creating dangerous fumes.
Oh, God, because mercury's so dangerous. But there's gold everywhere. There's gold over the ceiling. There's gold
the ceiling's
on the walls,
basically gold.
And then there's, like gold-coloured mosaics everywhere as well. And there's I don't know how many domes are actually. It's got obviously the main dome, but then there's smaller domes and the ceilings. It's mind-blowing, gobsmacking, all of those things. So go to the website, beachtravelwine.com, podcast page, and this is episode 65. But if you want to see some videos of inside when we were there, if you go to Instagram at beachtravelwine and go up the top where the story highlights are and click on Rome, you'll see those videos. And one of the first things we did in Rome was go to the Vatican. So there'll be the first couple of videos. And you trust me, you'll want to have a look at those.
Well, I know this is going to surprise you, Leonita, but I actually can tell you the church has 44 altars.
Yes.
11 domes.
Yes, lots of domes, I said.
778 columns.
Yes.
395 statues and 135 mosaics.
Yes, that's a bit of artwork for you guys.
So obviously, like the main area to look at is St. Peter's altar. Is an altar located in the centre of St. Peter's Basilica below the dome.
And I have a really nice picture of this. It's dark timber, right?
Well, there's basically what that is called. That's called Bernini's canopy. That's bronze. And that highlights the main altar, which the main altar is where only the Pope's, he can only do the services from there. And then below that, you've got St. Peter's grave, which is the tomb of St. Peter. And that's also got the majority of the other popes. And that you go down into that.
I know, and the decorations in that.
Talk about the ceiling gold. What about the gold there?
Yeah.
So then you've got...
What about the gold on the back wall?
Now
that's what drew my eye.
Okay, so that's the apse.
Yeah.
Now the apse is basically the main altar. So the chair is backed by a gilded depiction of St. Peter receiving the keys to the church from Jesus. Behind and above the chair is a host of gilded cherubs and angels, as well as sculptured clouds and rays of light that are emanating from the central pane of stained glass window, with the exterior light and illuminating the pane, as well as the general glow of the gilded bronze. The entire sculpture radiates heavenly aura. Now, I took that obviously reading it, but to me, after everything I'd read, that was probably the best that describes the opulence of, and that's no exaggeration.
Okay, well, they said the heavenly aura. That's probably, I guess, if it's a heavenly aura, the whole thing just seems to glow gold.
Yeah.
To me, and it was absolutely spectacular. I actually, after we finished our tour, I said to Lyle, I want to go back in there. I need to get some more photos of that. What was that?
The apse.
Bernini's canopy
as
well.
Yeah, and that's all in bronze.
Yeah, that's like this huge big canopy, which is amazing. And then to get the apse through, like on its own, but also through the canopy, it was just mind blowing. So, and one of the other things which, can I move on? You're right for me to do?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And this is like a completely weird, different, separate from that. Is there's actually a mummified Pope there?
Yep, Jean Paul II.
Yeah, and you can see him.
Yep. And he died in 2005.
Yeah.
And
he was the Pope that got shot at in 1981.
Yeah, that's correct.
No, 1980. Yeah, 1981 it was.
Yeah, 1981. Well done, Leonita.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he was canonised or made a saint on the 27th of 8th, 2014 by Pope Francis. And so
he's lying there with his red hat on and his cloak and everything, and his glass coffin.
Yeah.
And people just walk slowly past it.
Yeah, he was mummified, you said.
Yeah. Well, is that the word?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I his face and everything.
Yeah, and
it's not a sculpture. It's actually
it's
his
him.
body.
Yeah, and there's two others.
Okay.
Like that in St. Peter's.
I'll put a photo of that. If anyone else is a bit morbid like me and wants to have a look, I'll put that in the show notes. Episode 65.
Other highlights are Michelangelo's Pieta, which is probably recognised second only to David, the sculpture, and it is, seriously magnificent. It's the Virgin Mary gently holding the dead body of Jesus,
and that's a sculpture, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's that. There's also the monument to Pope Alexander VII.
Yeah.
And this was the last masterpiece of Bernini. He was 80 years old. So he probably didn't do it personally, but he directed it, and it is magnificent. They've also got the statue of St. Peter. Now, the deal there is pilgrims come there to touch or kiss his right foot. Now, it's quite strange because that right foot is quite flat and is smaller.
Yeah, well,
so
800
over
years
800 years, that's part of it. And obviously the dome is just amazing. So
yeah, you just wander around.
You're never going to go to a place that's going to impress you more.
No, that's true. One of the other little chapels there is called the Choir Chapel. And that is the only place you can actually get married in the Vatican.
Yeah, I'd hate to be dad paying for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But you know what? If you get married there, all your flowers, except the bride's bouquet, the photographers, all have to be either bought or approved by the Vatican, the St. Peter's, Guild.
Yeah, well, you've got to, when you look at
support local.
Seriously, you can understand why.
But there's the thing about this chapel is there's a big sort of fresco on the back wall.
Yep.
Yeah. the Virgin Mary, isn't it? The altarpiece.
The Virgin Mary is the masterpiece, was crowned with a golden diadem. Now, I didn't know what a diadem is. It's basically a crown.
So, there's the picture, and there's actually a gold crown on her head.
Yeah. And that was by diadem by Pius IX in 1854, the day on which he decreed the dogma of the Immaculate Conception.
Whatever that means, I've got no idea what that means.
The dogma is what a decree of the Immaculate Conception. In other words, there's two parts of that the Virgin Mary went to heaven with both body and soul.
Right.
And the other part of the Immaculate Conception, as I understand it, and I could be wrong on this, is the fact that she was a virgin when she had Jesus
got pregnant.
Christ.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So now...
Just remember, like half our listeners, maybe more, don't know Catholic, stuff.
Well, most of this I didn't know. I just thought because of the podcast. And, now the other thing that's extraordinary here...
Which is what I wanted to get to, besides the dogma, whatever, that's a really weird word.
Dogma or the diadem?
I don't know.
Anyway,
so the crown of Mary is gold, and then later on someone's come along and added diamonds, haven't they?
Sure.
Like decorated. I think there's 9 or 10 of them. These great big star-shaped diamonds on her
they
head.
were donated in 1904 by an international ladies' committee.
Well, they had some money, that ladies' committee,
but
I can tell you.
no one knows who the ladies' committee was. That's the ironical thing. So there's a bit of
Yeah. So you don't actually notice those unless you're looking for them. So
Liam noticed them straight away.
But there's lots of little chapels along the side. There's so much more to look at. But as Lyle said, you'd have to be pressed to find something that's gonna wow you, even more than St. Peter, inside of St. Peter's Basilica and the Vatican museums. Yes.
Oh, look, I get excited just thinking about it, and doing this podcast just brings it all back, and how elaborate, and it was just
so
lavish.
If you're into any sort of history, any sort of art, you need to find a way to get here, because it's one of the highlights of our Italian trip by a long way, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, I would ask you, where was your favourite place to have a wine, but we didn't actually have a wine, did we?
We did that day, because when we went home, we found a fabulous little bar.
No, we didn't. No, that wasn't that day. You know where we went? We went just outside the gates and sat in a cafe just outside the wall.
Yeah, we did.
And we had a glass of wine there, so we can count that, I think, as a beer and a wine at the Vatican there. Yeah.
Yeah, the food was good and it wasn't that dear.
No, it was a nice little way to finish our St. Peter's tour, that one.
Yeah,
will we put that in?
So that'll do.
All right. Anything else you want to add about the Vatican? We just about
not about the Vatican, but I must say you look spectacular today.
Thank you. I don't know where that's come from. I was just thinking the opposite about you.
Muchas gracias.
Oh, he hasn't shaved, hasn't combed his hair. He's got my red and leopard glasses.
Stop it.
There they go. All right, guys. So if you want to go and see the show notes that go with this episode, in the description on the app you're listening in now, you'll find the link there, and it will have beachtravelwine.com/podcast number 65, the Vatican. Click on that. It will take you to the show notes, which will have lots of photos, a lot more sort of, written information, and an interactive map so you can see where all the stuff is that we've seen today. So I hope you've enjoyed our trip through the Vatican, because we certainly did, and I'm sure you could tell that. So until next time, where we're going to be in the next episode, 66, we'll be back in Rome. We'll see you then. So,
arrivederci.
Bye.